Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Well, it was the regular season finale for both Panther City and Calgary, as both teams look to finish the year with a win. Welcome everyone to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, joined by Andy.
Hello.
We wondered last week how this game between Panther City and Calgary would kind of play out. I mean, would they start their starters? Would they sit some people? Would certain players even play at all? Would they rest players to get ready for the playoffs? Well, we kind of found out right away. Both teams had their starters start the game for Calgary and for Panther City going into this final regular season finale.
Yes, both teams thankfully had something to play for. I say thankfully because we got the highest level of competition. Granted, it would have been nice if Calgary sat maybe their key guys. Tyler Pace didn't play, but otherwise all their key components were in. So it led to what ended up being a really good matchup.
Yeah, and it was a good test again for both teams, I would say. I mean, Del Bianco, obviously having a crazy year. So I'm sure he wanted to kind of get in, which I think he ended up getting a record during this game for most minutes played in a season, if I read that right. So a little tip of the cap to him for that. I mean, I know he's on the other side, but I think it was a good way for Panther City to kind of build some momentum, especially with their starters going into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing about Calgary, they pretty much slaughtered Panther City the first game 12-5, and so we really wanted and needed a game to show that, hey, we can hang with these guys. You mentioned Del Bianco's having a great season, but Nick Damude's been doing pretty good himself, so this was really a matchup of both elite goalies in Damude and Del Bianco and elite transition guys as well, because Zach Courier is probably the leading contender for transition player of the year. He leads the league in loose balls, is over 40 caused turnovers and 15 goals. But on the other side, we've got a guy like Josh Medeiros who has 20 goals of his own. So it's not maybe what you'd call a traditional matchup by any means, but it's really fun to see those kind of positions go head to head.
Well, and like you mentioned, Medeiros is having a great season, having the most goals in a season. Pretty much, I mean, I think somebody even pointed that out, that he's only had like 9 goals coming into this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then this season alone, he's at 20.
Yeah, his first year he had 8, and I think he had already been a dedicated transition player last year. It's just that he's put in the work, he's improved by leaps and bounds, and he's getting opportunities set up by his teammates.
For sure. Well, I mean, it like you said, it was good that both teams had their starters going into this game. Unfortunately, it kind of paid off for Calgary to have their starters in. 30 seconds into the game, Calgary, they scored pretty fast, and I thought to myself, well, back to the usual. I thought we had a good turning point the last game where we would stop these slow starts, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case as this game started.
Yeah, though at least that one, the refs did have some disagreement on to whether Tanner Cook, I think whether he was in the crease or not. One said it was no good, one said it was good. And so that at least built up a little suspense as the like, oh wait, is this another slow start or did we get it going? But I mean, I think we responded pretty well.
Well, yeah, and our offense was playing a lot better at the start of this game. I mean, early on there was there's like a close, almost put back goal by Donville. I thought that was really a good play. And then after that first initial push by Calgary, I mean, our defense kind of settled down too, and kept the pressure on them for at least that first half of the quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, during the first part, I thought both teams were just, to quote Rasheed Wallace, both teams played hard. They were, because of the defense and goalie play, both teams were off target, but they were by no means passive on offense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so, talking about on offense, I mean, we definitely weren't passive. 7 minutes in, Crawford, starting again, which we'll talk about his time during this game, but 7 minutes in, he gets the first goal, and then not long after, honestly, I mean, there was another goal that we got, and then we're up 2-1 before we know it.
Yeah, that first goal by Crawford, it started out with a great Josh Medeiros and Dylan Hutchinson. I think it was a double team when Calgary had the ball and they were able to recover it. Hutchinson found Crawford cutting from the bench for what was basically a transition goal
Mm-hmm.
to get us on the board. And then Crawford finding John Donville streaking down the middle for a quick stick was really nice as well.
Oh yeah, and so I think it was good for the team, especially for the offense, to kind of get that rhythm going early.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and so our defense was still playing pretty good. Unfortunately, Calgary got another quick goal, so we're tied 2-2. But man, you talked about Medeiros early on. He showed up again, getting a great great goal, like going up 3-2 on that.
Yeah. Just that's his trademark all season. Evan Messenger hit him with a nice one in transition, and yeah, I don't remember whether he went over the shoulder or on the side, but it,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
was
yeah, I
very
think it was over
much,
the shoulder if I remember
hmm
right, but.
yeah, very much another game, another goal by Medi.
I mean, yeah, and he does. You did point it out last time. He does this signature thing where he like runs into the into
The
the
glass,
boards
yeah.
afterwards.
hmm
Yeah. He's
hmm
he's he's definitely like if you want a good hype man for transition plays, that's him right there. But he gets the goal, and then not a minute later, Gaucher again taking advantage of the minutes he's given. Awesome play, awesome goal. They we're up 4-2 before we knew it.
Yeah, and kind of we had mentioned that I think Hairwires, I'm probably butchering his name, but the Roughnecks they tied it up at 2-2 with a score off a rebound.
Mhm.
Gaucher essentially did the same thing off of Will Malcolmus, and he basically got it real close to the net and dove in before he landed, was able to cross the into the net. So, yep, it's nice to see an early 2 goal lead
Oh
because
yeah,
that's not something that I feel had happened certainly in the first quarter for quite a few games.
well, and it shows kind of the difference in this game compared to obviously the last game against them. We're just offensively, we were pushing the ball more. We were going after those loose balls, getting a lot of rebounds, second
hmm
shots, and it showed obviously, going up 4-2. But not to tone down the defense at all. I mean, Damoud was playing really solid, especially towards the end of the first. He got some great blocks and was playing really solid. Unfortunately, Calgary's just a really good team. Uh, man, it was like what 6 seconds left. They had a just really good executed play. I mean, they set their players exactly where they needed to be, and unfortunately, there was a player behind the goal, and they were able to just get the ball to him, and he went right around the corner from behind Damoud and got a goal right before the end of the first.
Yeah, we've gone on about how good Christian Del Bianco's been in net, but props to the coaching staff of Calgary as well because they had the wherewithal and foresight to pull Del Bianco and go 6-5 to end that quarter. And I think that extra player did disrupt Panther City a bit on offense and led to that Dan Taylor dunk from behind the net.
Yeah, and you could tell it was just like the way they set it up and the way they executed was probably exactly how they wanted to do it. I mean,
Right.
you couldn't draw it up any better, but still, I mean, we're up 4-3 after one. I was very glad to see the offense keeping strides and pretty awake during that first quarter.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, it was nice to see Crawford and Donville get early scores because the past few games does seem like more of our transition players and guys like Gaucher or Caputo getting the rebounds have really contributed to some of our point totals. So when our actual offense is running, that can only mean good things going forward.
Oh yeah, and we kept that going forward into the second quarter. I mean, Malcolm, again, he's not having crazy numbers like he did earlier in the season, but he's still a factor to take care of. He gets a great goal, putting us up 5-3, and at that point we were just like keeping the pressure consistently, offensively and defensively on Calgary.
Yeah, speaking of defensively, Will Malcolm basically was a two-way player on that position. He stayed on defense and helped double guy to force the early turnover from Calgary. And then that bouncing shot he had to sneak it past Del Bianco was great. That was I had at least I had 4 friends at this game, and when they saw that shot, they were like, "Wow, it was pretty good."
That's Will Malcolm, man. Like
Yeah.
he makes stuff happen. I mean, we've seen it all year, and so it's good to see him getting into good form right before the playoffs. Unfortunately, Calgary though they're a hard team to keep down. They get a good transition goal, keeping it close 5-4 at that point. But right after that, though, it wasn't too much after that. I wrote down there was a weird play that happened. So Crawford had the ball and he's like pushing towards the goal and he tries a behind the back pass to Caputo, but Caputo didn't expect it and so he lost track of it. But Crawford gets knocked down, and I was listening to the broadcast. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there. You were able to be at the game, but Crawford got knocked down. The announcer said, "Oh well, he's limping to the bench. We'll have to keep an eye on that." You were there live. I mean, what happened, or did you see what happened during that play?
I don't quite remember where he got hit, whether he just caught a stick to the shin or the calf or something. But I do remember there were at least a couple of times where you saw him limping over. I don't quite remember whether that was before or after Gaucher's would-be goal. That ended
This
up
one
being a
was
shot clock violation.
I think that was before because right after that, yeah, it was the shot clock violation, last second shot clock violation.
Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, it was just weird. Like they were saying to keep an eye on him, and then obviously he came back in the game. But man, that's something you got to keep an eye out for, especially heading into playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe he was trying to chase Zach Courier down on that one goal where he was, God, that guy's fast. And so,
Well, and yeah, I mean Crawford is like we pointed out. Whether he's playing good or not, I think he's an essential part to the team out there, especially the
mhm.
offense. So to have that going on kind of in the background, I was kind of worried there, but it was good for him to get back later on in the game. But not all, yeah. So we talked about obviously that last second goal that got called off because of shot clock violation. But right after that, like not long after that, Patton, your boy Patton,
Yep. The
get
general.
yep gets in. He gets a goal, goes up 6-4, and then gosh, like shortly after that, Nathan Grinnan, my guy. Both of
Yeah.
our guys are showing up, and the next thing you know, we're up 7-4.
Yeah, both those plays were excellent. Patton, he doesn't really get a lot of transition opportunities compared to guys like Tony Malcolm and Medeiros. So it was nice to see him on. He had a great give and go with Tony where he passed it to Tony, kept on running because that's what you do. And Tony found it to him, and Patton had a nice diving goal to get himself on the board. And then the Crawford to Donville to a cutting Nathan Grennan for his quick goal was classic. So many of Grennan's goals are right by the
hmm
by the net. He knows exactly where to be, and Donville and guys like that know how to find him.
Well, and I wrote down in my notes. I mean, this is the team that we wanted to show up all year. This is the offense that
Yes.
we wanted to show up all year, and so it was good to see even for a few minutes this flash of what we can be. But again, just talking about Calgary, just they're just too good of a team, and their record shows it obviously. But it's hard to keep them down. They score, so they trim it to 7-5, but you know Dodds, man, Dodds is he's sticking around. He's not the same player as he was, like I said last year, but he gets another quick goal, and we're up 8-5. Man, it was good to see the offense like this.
Yeah, and they alluded to it multiple times on the telecast, but that's probably the best the 5-on-5 offense has looked, certainly within this last part of the season.
hmm
Yeah, the passing was pretty crisp, and we didn't have any. I don't think we had any penalties in that first half either.
Yeah, it was clean, and that's kind of what you want, honestly. You want a clean game, and you want a really effective game, and that's what we were doing.
Yeah, it was considering that the first game that I brought friends to was that beatdown at the hands of the San Diego Seals. It was
Yeah.
nice to see one where we were winning.
Yeah. Obviously, you want a close game, especially last game of the regular season like this.
Yeah,
I did note also, yes, I mean Crawford was noted limping again right before halftime. I think on the broadcast they even asked him about it, and he's like, "No, I'm fine." like,
yeah, yeah,
I mean, he's a little bit older, but he knows not to give away too much information on what's actually going on.
yeah. He could be out there with a broken broken leg, I'm sure, and be like, yeah, just a flesh wound.
Yeah, just a flash wound. I'll limp it off. Don't worry about it. But at the half, up 8-5. Really happy with how the team looked. I'll give a quick shout out to Drew Betteridge, who reached out to us at halftime on Instagram. I mean, he just shot us a message saying, are we playing well or is Calgary resting for the playoffs? I sent that to you. I mean, what are your thoughts about the game at that point?
I didn't get the impression that they were resting aside from Tyler Pace. I believe he had a conflict. I think he was on the short-term holdout list or something for this game. They seemed like that they were wanting to win it. I know Panther City obviously was wanting to solidify their hold on the 3 seed because while this was Panther City's season finale, Colorado had 2 games left and they essentially had gives them 2 chances to tie up our record. And since they owned the season series with Panther City, they would then bump into the 3 spot. Meanwhile, Calgary had an opportunity to advance to the 1 seed since San Diego didn't play until the following night. So both teams had something to play for. And I think that was reflected in the intensity from both sides.
Oh yeah, and that's what I mean. Like it was, I think it goes to tell you again, this team has the ability to hang with those 1 or 2 seeds. Those, as we mentioned even a few weeks ago, those upper echelon teams, they have the ability to. It's just the execution, and they were executing as well as they could be in that first half. But after halftime, again, I know Panther City is considered a second half team, but Calgary came out in the second half looking to fight back, and fight back they did.
Yeah, literally.
Not only what 3 minutes into the second half, a fight breaks out down on the Panther City end.
Yeah, it was Ryan McLean and Tanner Cook got into it, and it was kind of amusing because McLean was trying to get Cook's bucket off basically the entire time, and by the time he was finally able to get it off, they were tussling on the ground, and so it got separated pretty quick. So I don't know if there's any sort of unspoken rules in terms of like, hey, this guy's not taking his bucket off, he's a coward, or he's trying to avoid the hits because McLean's a pretty big dude.
Oh yeah. And they were going at it for a good portion. I mean, the one highlight from that too is watching on the broadcast, and you see Damood in the background,
Yeah,
like
yeah, David like pounding his stick. Yeah.
yeah, he was hyped for it. He was like, "Yeah, man, I'm not gonna get in it. I'm not gonna get in the fight, but I'll sit back here and root for you."
Yeah, so yeah, it was pretty funny to see. Of course, the fans they loved it. They like seeing the extracurriculars go on. However, in terms of the game, I think that kind of spurred the Roughnecks into playing a bit better.
Oh, it did. I mean, right after that, Calgary scores. They're getting closer, 8-6. I mean, it goes to show you just how much I think Panther City wanted to be in the thick of things that night, and really wanted to win. I mean, Donville, having a really good rookie season, but 18 seconds after Calgary scores, we come back and score. It's 9-6 at that point. Both teams playing very physical at that point too.
Yeah, you could tell there was probably still some carryover from the McLean and Cook um, conflict, shall we say. But yeah, I'm glad that Donville was able to get that goal near the crease to kind of keep the pressure on and keep Calgary, I guess,
Well,
yeah, keep them
and
on their toes.
Calgary, like you said, was coming out very momentum heavy. They were really wanting to get back in the game, and so anything you can do to kind of
Hmm.
slow that momentum down is, I think, a good thing. And Donville, try his best to keep it, as far apart or ahead as possible with the lead. But Calgary, they they got another goal pretty fast after that, 9-7 at that point. But still, I put here, Damood, all things considered, he's playing really solid this game, especially considering, like you said, the last game he got pulled in the second quarter. But he's had some great blocks, and was really giving a full effort out there that night.
Yeah, he was doing his best. I don't want to say Christian Del Bianco impression because he's his own man, but yeah, he couldn't save everything, but some of the saves he had and the sequences, how it'd be
Mhm.
one or after another, it was really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't playing obviously like lights out perfect. I mean, Calgary gets another goal. They inch even closer, 9-8. But you talked about how there wasn't a whole lot of penalties. Thankfully, we got a penalty towards the end of the third, on our side, which led to a great Crawford goal. I mean, you got to take advantage of those opportunities, and that's when we go up 10-8. Crawford, I mean, I understand he was lipping around earlier, but again, his presence out there just makes a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, and he wasted no time in getting that goal. I think that was the first possession
Hmm.
right off of the penalty. Just Calgary quick slashing before you know it. Crawford up top, and the defense was guessing what's he going to do because he always motions like he's going to pass, and then he just ends up ripping one down the middle.
Age is just a number, that's all we
Yeah,
can learn from him. I mean, it doesn't matter how old you are or how many teams you've been on or where you've been. If you got the talent and the skill, I mean, you can keep those young guys on their toes. But yeah, so no, go ahead.
yeah, totally. Oh no, just saying it was nice, and I'm sure the other team members, the younger guys like Grennan, Donville, Gaucher, they love to see it come from the
Oh yeah,
wily old
yeah. I
vet.
mean, he's definitely cemented his spot in that offense. But again, Calgary towards the end of the third, they get another goal. We end the third 10-9, so we're ahead, just not as ahead as I think we had hoped.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't what you wanted to come out of halftime with. There were some positive things, like what we mentioned. Damien had some great saves. Patton actually got a penalty at the end of that third quarter, but Panther City was thankfully able to kill it off. I think near the end of it, Foley had a really good disruption. I don't think it went in the books as a cause turnover or anything, but it basically helped lead to an awkward shot on Damien because Calgary couldn't get their interior passes clean, so they had to rush something at the end. So there were still some positives to take away for sure.
Oh yeah, and we had some good positives going into the fourth. Obviously up 10-9, but then Calgary decided to kind of flip the switch. Next
Yes.
thing you know, I mean, Calgary gets a good goal right off the bat. They're too good of a team to keep down, and it's only a matter of time before they start catching up. But they get that goal, and then they get another goal right after that, almost. So that was their first lead. They go up 11-10. That's their first lead since the first quarter. They at that point, I think what they were on like a 5 or 4-0 run or something like that. At that point,
At that point, it was 3-0, and
3-0. Okay.
overall, I think it was like four. Well, let's see, one, two, three, a 5-1 run if you want to count the some of the goals from the third quarter. But yeah, they were both teams were playing aggressively on offense and defense. Calgary, we had done a pretty good job limiting their transition opportunities, but props to their 5-on-5 guys. They did a great job as well.
Oh yeah, and so at that point, it's 11-10. I mean, Panther City was able to answer back. They get a goal, they tie it up, but it just kind of felt like we were waking up a little bit more, but we just need a little bit more. We need that extra push just to kind of reach the finish line. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're almost to the end, and we have the stuff to do it. We just need that little bit more push to get to the end.
Well, even that goal that Caputo had to tie it up was kind of emblematic of like it's better to be lucky than
Hmm.
good sometimes. I don't remember who tried to pass it to him. Might have been Malcolm, but the ball hit him on the shoulder, and then he looked around for a minute. He saw it. He saw it on the field. He scooped it up and scored a quick 5-hole on Del Bianco to to tie it up. It was just one for the Del Bianco's blooper reel, I'm sure.
Right. One of the plays that he'll skip over as they get ready for the playoffs. Um,
Hmm.
but still, I mean, Calgary. Next thing you know, we have a penalty, right? And we have a power play, so we're like, okay, maybe we have a chance to kind of go ahead again. But Calgary's defense, they really played good during that power play, and then once they went to full strength, I mean, it wasn't short after that. They got another goal, so they're up 12-11 at that point, and then they scored again, going up 13-11. I mean, at that point, I
Yeah.
felt like the game was starting to slip away from us a little bit.
Yeah, because when it was still tied up, we actually got quite a few offensive rebounds and got some favorable out of bounds possessions that gave us the ball back, but the team just couldn't capitalize. Gaucher had a pretty good rebound off a missed goal, but from what I remember, he hit the pole, or Del Bianco was able to get to it, and not just Del Bianco. By the time it was 13-11, Calgary was deflecting a lot of passes, just getting their bodies and sticks in the lane. There was one play the Crawford had the ball and looked like he had a pretty good opportunity for a dunker or something in transition, but the defender was on his tail enough to where he lost balance behind the net, and he had to put his glove down to kind of steady himself, which led to a crease violation, and that would have been a perfect one-on-one opportunity for him against Del Bianco.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of those things where, yeah, like you said, it's almost like luck leads to positive things, and then bad luck leads to to
Mm-hmm.
negative things. But Panther City. I mean, I think they really wanted to prove a point. They wanted to prove a point with this game. So Calgary's up 13-11. Another big run by them as far as scoring wise goes. But then Grennan, I mean, he's a scrappy player out there. Gets a goal. I mean, at that point, it's 13-12. We have a chance. We have a chance to tie. And it kind of came down to another nail biting moment. Another week. I mean, last week it was nail biting to the very end. This week, nail biting to the very end.
Gosh, I don't know what to make of those last few possessions we had. I'm sure you saw it on the replay, but I know after Grennan scored, we eventually get the ball back. Oh yes, we forced a shot clock violation,
hmm
and then Caputo missed the goal. We get the offensive board. Coach TK calls a timeout. They end up pulling Damien to go 6-on-5, and in the ensuing possession, there are two penalties called on Calgary when the ball is in the crease. One was holding. I don't remember on who, but it was holding, and another player covered the ball inside the crease, which led to a Callum Crawford penalty
Well,
shot.
well, and that's the first time I had seen a penalty like that with the player putting their hand on the ball.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was, but I guess it was that and plus the other penalty that led to the penalty shot. But yeah, this is all happening with like 35 seconds left in the game. So it's like it's not like it's over time. But yes, penalty shot by Crawford. I mean, you were there. What did you think?
Man, Crawford had had a pretty good game up to that point, and there's not many players in the league you'd want taking a penalty shot than Showtime. But he tried to go over Del Bianco's right shoulder, or no, his let me think, his left shoulder, and I'm not too sure how the angle was from where we were sitting, but it seemed like Del Bianco was able to lift it up his arm just enough for the ball to bounce off it, or cause a too narrow gap for it to slip through. So it either hit his arm or the crossbar. The Obviously Callum Crawford's a much better lacrosse mind than I am, but I think had he faked a little more, he probably would have been able to sneak one over the right shoulder on the near side, Del Bianco's stick side. But that's probably why he didn't want to risk that, because that's the side that Del Bianco could have gotten with his stick. But
Right.
man,
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I was watching that and I was like, oh my gosh, because I was watching it actually. So, quick rundown. I was actually in Houston over the weekend, but I was watching it while that was happening too, and it was just
dang.
because I thought, okay, he's taking the shot. That's a tie game,
Yeah,
but
we were convinced, and it got my friends. The entire crowd was so pumped. My friends, this was maybe their first or second game ever. They're like, I didn't know there were penalty shots in lacrosse. This is awesome. And so it was a thrilling moment, and it led to disappointment. And then we still had chances after that, but it was just the offense was discombobulated because of Calgary's aggression.
hmm
Del Bianco was able to block the final shots, or save them, and other defenders were able to get their bodies in the way, get some body blocks in there. So it, but man, that was, even though it was a loss, that was a very exhilarating finish and
right. I
game
mean,
overall.
it was a miss, but man, super close game, very physical game. Uh, Great game, honestly, by both teams. I mean, yeah, we ended with a loss, 13-12. Yeah, I wrote down here it was a great game to close the regular season. You and me were both at the last game last year, where nothing was really on the line, and the guys were just kind of playing, just for fun, kind of thing. And it wasn't really a close game, but it was good to see everybody play. This year, it was a completely different story.
Absolutely. Yeah. From what I remember, Damien didn't even suit up. I know Orleman was in goal to get him some minutes. And then, yeah, he's not with the team anymore. So,
Right.
yeah, it was a great home finale. And we'll go into this later, but they did have an event afterwards where players signed autographs and whatnot. And because of the nature of this game being as close as it was, and as close as it was against the upper echelon team in the league, I think that helped keep the players' spirits pretty high afterwards, so they weren't kind of glum when they were having to sign people's jerseys or whatever.
Right, right. Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later because that's a cool, after game event that they had. But yeah, obviously we wish we could have gotten the win, but still a good game overall. Well, with a close game offensively and defensively, that means the stat sheet might have looked pretty full, which of course brings us to this week's Mr. Andrews stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, what stats do you have for us this week?
Well, as you might expect from a game that was as close as it was throughout, so many of the categories are pretty close. Panther City won the Lucy battle, 62 to 58 loose balls. Calgary won the face-off battle, but barely, 16 to 14. And from what I remember, they were mixing up who was taking the face-offs between Burton, obviously, but also Patton took quite a few from what I remember. I don't think Bricker Muir or Ronan Puch or other guys were playing, but it was kind of nice to see some variety. And it seemed to help out because we didn't win over 50%, but we were right under, which is pretty respectable. Calgary did get a few more shots on goal, 53 to 48, which was actually a better discrepancy than in the first half, where they had 8 more shots, 28 to 20. So that's something, who knows, maybe all those shots in desperation near the end kind of helped even it out a bit more, but it was still nice to see. Blocks, we had a couple more defender blocks than Calgary did, 4 to 3. Calgary won the cause turnover battle, 11 to 8. The big difference was Calgary won the turnover battle. They only had 22 to Panther City's 30, and that, I feel like in this game, that was probably more credit to their defense than our offense, because some of the passing that Panther City was doing in this game was a lot crisper than it had it previously. So they just have to learn how to deal with pressure from a defensive team like Calgary a bit better. And also, a game with Del Bianco and Damiud, you can't overlook what they did in that. Damiud saved 40 out of 53 shots at 75.4%, which is a bit lower than you would like from an elite level goalie. However, Del Bianco was actually a tick worse at 36 out of 48 for 75%. So props to both coaches and both offenses for being able to make these goalies look mortal for 60 minutes. And we brought up how great Damian did in the first half. He actually saved 23 out of 28 shots, only allowed 5 goals for a stellar 82% rating, whereas Del Bianco only saved 12 of 20 for 60%. I actually thought there was a good chance that Calgary was going to pull Del Bianco, but in the second half, he showed why he's such a good goalie.
Oh yeah, and that, even with the loss, like I said, Damiud had a great game. I think this was a good performance by him. It does, we talked about during that first game against Calgary how they pulled him, and sometimes you just have to let him weather the storm. You have to let him get that experience. And so I think last week's game, obviously getting a lot of great blocks during there, and obviously getting that last block at the end of the game to seal the win. And then this week, I think he should feel pretty good about himself. And I'm thankful that they did start him and they let him play a full game, and they didn't pull anybody early. But that kind of experience is what you need with a young team like this going into the postseason for the first time. Yeah,
absolutely. He did great throughout. You're not going to win them all, but man, yeah, that first quarter he looked great. He basically had 3 elite quarters in a row, going from the win against Vancouver last week into this one. So, yeah.
Well, of course, that is Mr. Andrews' stats of the game, which leads us to our Cool Cat plays of the game. I have one. I mean, there was multiple ones. There's a couple of different ones that I thought were really good. Honestly, I wish I wish I could put more notes down about some of Damude's saves because he had some good saves as
Yes.
well. But mine was that first quarter putback goal by Gaucher. I mean, we've talked about multiple times this year. He takes advantage of the minutes that he's given on the floor, and he took advantage of that. Great. I mean, it was a great rebound and a putback goal by Gaucher. That is, of course, my cool cat play of the game. What play do you have?
That Gaucher one was one of my honorable mentions, along with Phil Caputo off the broken play where the ball bounced off his shoulder onto the ground. He just scooped it up and got it in.
Right.
Yeah, big a point's a point. So what are you gonna do? But I think the two best ones, in my opinion, were the Crawford to Donville to Grennan goal, where there was enough passing going on that allowed Grennan to kind of sneak in the middle and score. That was 5-on-5 ball movement at its best because the ball wasn't sticking with any one player for any long amount of time. Along with that, I mentioned it earlier, Will Malcolm had a great defensive stop, and then he basically ran down the floor, got the ball back, and had that great bouncing 5-hole shot on Del Bianco.
Oh yeah, and there were, like I said, there were a lot of other plays I thought that were just awesome, but uh, offensively and defensively, again, it was a really good game by both sides. That is, of course, our cool cat plays of the game, which brings us to our big cat players of the game. Andy, I'll let you kick us off on this one. Who do you have for your players of the game?
I had trouble choosing one. Tyler Burton and Liam Patton were very solid on faceoffs from what I witnessed. Damude, again, he had a much stronger start than in past games, which helped to keep it competitive throughout. We mentioned it, it was almost like opposite day for Panther City, or at least Damude, in terms of, okay, he's having the stronger first half and then maybe lost a bit down the stretch.
Right.
But yeah, overall, he didn't come away with the win, but we saw a lot of good things out of him. The trio of elite playmakers in Callum Crawford, John Donville, and Will Malcolm, they would probably be my players of the game. They were all solid, and it had been a while since all three of them had scored. Mm-hmm. I think now and then you might get like a goal from Malcolm in one game, one from Donville from another, but Callum would go get a donut, that sort of thing. So it was nice to see all of them nab multiple points and assists in the same game, especially against a team like Calgary.
Oh yeah, and it's good for them to find that rhythm again. It's good for them to get those goals and feel good about how they are offensively on the floor. Yeah, I mean, for me, my honorable mention was Damude. I mean, yeah, he had a really good, solid game. Not perfect, but solid, especially compared to the last game against Calgary. But you already mentioned him, Donville. There's a reason why he's considered in consideration for Rookie of the Year, and he showed up that night for sure, getting in those goals, and not only that, but helping an assist. Just, man, I'm ready to see what he can do in the playoffs. I'm ready to see what he can do. I'm ready to see what Will Malcolm can do in the playoffs too. I think if Will Malcolm wanted to shine in the spotlight, it's going to be coming up soon in a playoff game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing people forget about Donville, yes, he is a rookie, but he's a bit more seasoned because he went to grad school and stayed another year after he was drafted to get more experience, everything. So combine Donville's quote-unquote experienced youth and with Will Malcolm's speed, and then Crawford's veteran leadership, plus Gaucher, Caputo, all the guys, good things are going to happen.
Yeah. Well, of course, those are our big cat players of the game. Which brings us to kind of our final thoughts on this season finale against Calgary. I hate to toot my own horn for 2 seconds, but I did predict a loss, and I predicted a close loss. Mine was 9-8. 13-12. That's pretty close too. But no, it was. I don't think it was a bad loss. I think it was a good loss, because it showed Panther City. Okay, so this is a really bad example, but you've seen The Matrix Reloaded, right?
Not all the way through. I couldn't make
it. Okay. Well, there's a part in there where they're going against Neo, and he stops the bullets and everything like that, and he looks like this god of a man. And this guy goes up there with a sword, and they fight, and he's blocking the sword with his hand, but at the very end, he blocks it, but he gets cut. And the guy they're going against, like I forget what they called him, but anyway, he looks at his henchman and he says, "You see, he's just a man." I think for Panther City, this game was a way for them to look at Calgary and say, "Look at this team. They're they're mortal. We can go
Yeah.
against them. They're not this unachievable thing that just blew us out of the water this last game. It, they're a team that we can beat, and that's why
Hmm.
that's why I felt like this was a a good loss for them.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, they had a similar game against San Diego the first time they played. So against the top two teams in the division, they hung with them in at least in one of their matchups with each. And then Colorado, they even beat in the game. So
Mhm.
so against all the playoff locks, they at least have had some modicum of success. It might have not resulted in a win, but it resulted in a lot of good things that they can build upon.
Well, and so I put in my notes is I mentioned it last week. Do you feel like this could be something similar to that New York Giants effect, where hey, they battled hard against an undefeated Patriots team and came back and won against them the next time they saw them? Could we be seeing something similar in this game?
I think we would have a better chance doing that against Calgary than San Diego. I will say that much. And yeah, we can talk about the entire playoff picture
Hmm.
a bit later. But yeah, again, the outcome wasn't what we wanted, but it's definitely a confidence builder. I'm very interested to see what how the bye week of the final week in the season is gonna affect things. And then even now, I think it was good to have kind of a reverse problem of some of our other losses. Whereas we usually have a weak start and a stronger finish. This one was a strong start and a weaker finish. So between the two of those, if you take the best parts of both those kinds of losses that we've had this season, then anything can happen.
So you're saying hopefully in our playoff game we can have a good first half and a good second.
And a good, yeah, yeah, very,
Break the halftime trend. Maybe we shouldn't just have a halftime. We should just
yeah.
skip
Just switch it
that.
to a 30-minute game.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless we play poorly the first 30 minutes, then we'll have a 60 minute.
Right. But yeah, like you mentioned, there is a bye week. The playoffs don't start until May 6th. It is, I believe, a 7:30 game. So be on the lookout for that. We will have a show next week where we talk about just the playoffs and looking forward to our game and our quick 2 cents about the other games as well. But Andy, you mentioned earlier this was a great end of this season, regular season game. But after the game, they had a meet and greet and a chance for you to like talk to the players and get some autographs and stuff like that. I unfortunately wasn't able to make it, but how was that for you?
It was pretty cool. So basically, immediately afterwards, they had all the season ticket members who had obtained a wristband from the season ticket desk earlier in the night line up at a seating section, and we basically waited until the players did their post game stuff. Probably took a shower, got cleaned up, put on some clothes, that kind of thing. Um, and from what Abby had told us previously, they were actually truncating their usual routine in order to be able to make it out for the fans and not have the fans wait around super late for them. So, we were waiting around there just chatting with each other for a bit. I got to talk with some of the dancers, some of the other fans in line. It's pretty cool. And then eventually you see the players start filing out of the tunnel. And on the field, they have tables set up with each of them had like their name placard at it. They were aside from I think Crawford, who was actually the first player you would encounter when you're in line. Each table sat too. Of course, the Malcolms sat together.
Right.
And so yeah, it was basically around the perimeter or the outer edge of the field. And so yeah, eventually once all of them were out, we marched down. It was kind of cool. Their families were hanging out there too. So there were a lot of I think their wives or girlfriends showed up. Some of them, Patton was playing with his kid for a while. I think Burton's kid, who he got to play in front of last week, made the trip down. So yeah, by the time we got down there, the line moved pretty steadily. I know you could get one item signed and basically chat with the players while you're there, show them your appreciation and talk to them about stuff. Props to shout out to Callum Crawford and John Donville. Donville and his co-hosting buddies on Back of the Bird. I listened to their episode interviewing Callum over the past week. And so actually when it was my turn to put my jersey out for Crawford to sign, I actually told him, "Hey, I listened to your interview. It was really cool hearing how you grew up not playing hockey like most lacrosse players, but grew up playing volleyball and stuff that's a bit more airborne sports."
Right.
Because he mentioned on that podcast that he always felt like he didn't move like other lacrosse players because he didn't have that hockey influence. And so he agreed. And so we talked a bit about that. I asked him what his commute was like coming in from Tulsa each week. He actually drives, which kind of surprised me. So, but yeah, it was really cool talking with him. So just, yeah, throughout the line, some players are a bit more reserved or vocal than others. And so, yeah, Tyler Byrne was happy to talk with us. I think I gave him our card. Said like, yeah, we give you shout outs on the faceoffs and the occasional goals and assists you get this season.
Right.
I told Damute about the Nick Damute appreciation post. He was happy to hear about that. The players.
I was about to say, so I post those, and I'm always weary if he actually enjoys them or if he's like, man, these guys again.
No, I think they're all appreciative. And yeah, and since I went to that Lacrosse Unlimited event at Plano a couple of weeks ago, the guys that were there recognized me. So Foley saw me. He asked me like how the new stick I got while I was at Lacrosse Unlimited was. I was like, oh man, it's good, but I still need to find a wall or a net to practice on, kind of thing. Caputo and I chatted some. And you'll love this. When Nate Grennan saw me, he got up and gave me a hug. And it's funny because his chin was still bloody from the game, and so he like hugged me. He's like, "Hey, come here, man." Oh, sorry, don't mean to get you bloody or anything. So yeah, it was just super fun and personable and approachable. Had a nice chat with Tony and Will Malcolm about how players start out learning the different positions. Like, do you start out specializing in one right off the bat, or do you kind of learn the fundamentals first and then they're like, yeah, you'd be good on defense or you'd be good in transition.
Yeah.
And so having that kind of talk was pretty cool. So yeah, I think in all I was maybe in front of a player it's probably only like 10 minutes or something when it's all said and done. But it was just awesome getting that kind of access and FaceTime. McLean, who basically returned to the team mid-season, I told him, hey, that was a fun skirmish you had, but yeah, it's great to see you back on the floor healthy and everything and whatnot. And so, it was a very neat event. And yeah, I'll have to send you a picture of my jersey.
Oh yeah,
at
for
some
sure.
point. Oh, and yeah, they were actually, since this was the last event, I should have thought to pick up an extra for you, but they had a team poster, which was basically like the photo of the roster this year. And then what was the other thing they had?
It was like a towel.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, the rally towel, like the one that we both got.
Yeah.
So all in all, it was pretty neat. And then I mentioned I got to talk to some of the dancers in line about potentially doing something with us. So overall it was a nice, close, exciting game. And then afterwards being able to talk to the players and get some autographs and FaceTime with them was the cherry on top.
Yeah, and it just, I'm glad they allowed that kind of access to them. I know they did limit it to like season ticket members. Hopefully in the future, maybe they'll leave it a little bit more open. That would be my only suggestion, just because, you want to get as many people, enjoying that as they can.
Speaking on that, I think there is a chance that at the end they might have just opened it up to everyone, like anyone who was still hanging out at the arena. I can't say for sure, but I kind of got that vibe by the people who were holding out the wristbands and were asking if no one had a wristband, because so many of the fans are like kids and stuff that are really starstruck.
Yeah,
and so they just wanted to basically get everyone involved and give them that opportunity.
Yeah, and that's what you gotta do. You gotta make it enjoyable for everybody. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of events they have lined up for next year. Hopefully, more of this kind of stuff, like more interactive, more one-on-one. Even the
Hmm.
stuff like us, like shooting the ball after a game.
Yeah.
That was fun. I mean, it was simple, but it was fun.
And
Just being
then
on the field.
yeah, and I know the following day they had another kind of meet and greet thing at Cowtown Cats Brewery. I wasn't able to make that one, but from what it looked like, they got a pretty solid turnout of people supporting the team. So that's nice to see.
Yeah. Well, and those are all events. I hope maybe next year we can make a little bit make two be able to make it to more. But it all just depends on when it is and
Right.
availability and stuff.
Hmm.
But well, that's awesome, man, and I'm glad you and your friends had a good time at the game. Obviously, like you said, it was a really good close game, and everybody was kind of in good spirits afterwards. But yeah, like I said, we look forward to this bye week. Everybody's gonna get rested. Hopefully, be ready and 100% rested and ready to go for our playoff game on May 6th. As we sign off on the second regular season for Panther City, unlike last year, it's not the end of the road for us just yet. Postseason is right around the corner, and I think you and I are both ready to see, just what we can do. I mean, win or loss, it's good to see the team succeeding in that direction. But of course, we want to thank everybody for listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and of course Twitter. Thank you guys a million times over for this wonderful season, and thank you for listening. I am once again Nicholas,
And I am special regular season finale edition, Andrew.
a regular season finale edition. That's limited edition for those of you guys out there listening.
Yeah.
But of course, we'll see you all next time.
All right. Cheers, y'all.
Yo.